What's up, guys? This is Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down some big news that just came out from the Fed that's contributing to why the market is dipping and what the jobs numbers are suggesting. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right over here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 for free Nvda stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of NVIDIA plus a $100 cash reward. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of NVIDIA plus $100, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free NVIDIA stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on invested cash, and the offer ends very soon in just 3 days from now. So please check out my link down below to get these benefits. Anyways, as far as Tesla's going, I just wanted to mention that we're in this channel, right? We like to reject off this upper trend line. We like to bounce off the lower trend line. And instead of holding above this 440 area, we got some negative news and Tesla's coming down. And because we're rejecting off this upper trend line, I do think we might be coming down to visit the lower trend line, which is currently at 427. So 427 to 430 could be tested. And then we're going to see if Tesla could try to bounce off that again and once again maintain this channel like this. We're going to see if that ends up being the case. So make sure you watch these levels very, very carefully. But the whole market is actually coming down a bit after our jobs numbers came out and also after something one of our Fed speakers said. So we had Mirren from the Fed who came out, and he is basically saying that the central banks are risking damage to the economy by not moving rapidly to lower interest rates. He is once again a new Fed board member, and he is saying that he thinks that the Fed should aggressively cut. He's saying that the current rates are way too high, they're highly restrictive, and they're well above his estimate of the so called neutral level, where policy neither boosts nor restrains the economy. He thinks that the Fed is being too aggressive and that they should start to cut rates as soon as possible, or else they're going to be risking a lot of damage to the economy. There is an argument to be made for this, excuse me, but of course it's going to depend on other factors, right? The inflationary risks and such. If you look at the last CPIs and such, we've been seeing inflation going up, so we're going to have to see changes first, according to the Fed, before that ends up happening. But Mirren he's basically saying that if we don't necessarily make the changes, then once again there's going to be risk to damage the economy, and I think that that caused a little bit of fear for markets. Now there's about an 85% chance we get a 25 basis point cut. And the market is once again a little bit more apprehensive. The market could also be kind of looking at things a little bit differently, right? Instead of us just like cutting because once again things are improving. Another perspective is that what if the Fed has to rapidly cut because things are breaking, right? That's another way to kind of look at things. And we're starting to hear some Fed officials kind of like talking about that possibility. That's oftentimes what happens when the economy starts breaking, the Fed starts scrambling to cut rates. I think that's causing a little bit of fear right now. And I think that's one of the reasons why sentiment shifted this morning. On top of this, the GDP numbers are decent. The GDP growth rate was at 3.8% above expectations, but initial jobless claims came a little bit short, only 218,000. And then continuing jobless claims was at 1.92 million. That's basically as expected. Once these jobs numbers came out, the market actually dipped a little bit more. So once again, the market's not responding too positively to this, and we're still looking like we might be dipping a bit more as a result. Besides that, there's not really anything else that's too crazy on the news that I'm seeing. And then besides that, don't forget later on today we have Costco's earnings, which could be very impactful. So be ready for all of that. So as far as Tesla's going, I need to see us reclaim at least 440 to turn back to bullish. If we can't hold above at least 435, I do see a risk of 430 to 427 on Tesla. There's also a gap to fill down here at 425, so it could dip to that 425 to 430 range. But then I think Tesla could try to bounce there as long as 425 holds. If 425 doesn't hold, there's going to be a risk of us dipping to like 415. But hopefully we balance between 425 and 430. We might dip a couple of points on Tesla. Then we'll see if buyers can defend. On SPY, unfortunately, we're looking quite bearish after this news came out. And also, the jobs numbers wasn't really enough to cause this to bounce. We need to get back up of at least 658 if we can't reclaim that for now. There's going to be a risk of us dipping a bit more towards 655 than 652. So I think that we might be dipping a little bit more towards the mid to low 650s. And then we're going to see if we could try to bounce near 655 to 652. So look for a little bit more downside, and then we're going to see if we can try to rebound as time goes on. But for now, we are still favoring downside at the time I'm recording this. So be very careful. The QQQ is now testing our yellow support at 591. We need to hold this. If we don't hold this, there could be a head and shoulders right here, and the full measure move would take us down towards like 584. Watch 590. We got to hold 590, and we need to get back above 597 to turn back to bullish. If we can't hold 590, I do see a risk of us dipping towards like 585, 580, 588, and then 585. And then we're going to see if we bounce off those levels or not, but look for some temporary downside. On the IWM, we have a double top here. We're going to see if we dip all the way down towards 237. We'll see if buyers defend afterwards, so be very careful. On ES, we also have kind of like a head and shoulders like pattern. If this head and shoulders is going to fully pan out, we're looking for 6650. If it doesn't hold, we could be coming all the way down to 6600 flat before we try to bounce. And then on NQ, we need to get back above 24,673. If not, we could be dipping all the way down to the lower 24,000s before we bounce. There could be some temporary downside. Bitcoin started off with a bounce yesterday. The market looked like it wanted to bounce, but now we got a rejection. If we continue to fall, we could dip all the way down to like 110,000 flats, and we'll see how it ends up reacting. So as far as Tesla goes, we could be looking for essentially 430 to 425, and then we'll see if we bounce or not. For Nvda, we're dipping right here. We need to see if this gets back above 176. If not, we're looking for essentially 174. Then there's a gap fill all the way down to 171 if that fails us. Now Nvidia is starting to dip. The whole market is basically coming down. Aapl is showing resilience. We're going to see if 250 holds. It might touch 250 before it tries to bounce, but it's still holding up well. Looking at Palantir, instead of bouncing off our 20 EMA, we came down again in the pre-market. So the whole market's kind of gapping down. There is a gap to fill down here at 168. So watch 173 as support. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for 168. On AMD, we need to hold above 158. If not, we could be tipping back down to 156 to 155, and we'll see if we bounce. Coinbase is looking a bit more bearish. We could be dipping back down towards 310. If that doesn't hold, I'm looking for like 306. Amazon's on a bit of a downtrend. We're going to see if we could hold above 215 or not. Watch 220. If not, we're going to be likely dipping to 218, then 215. Meta started off with the push and it's rejecting. We could retest 750, and if that doesn't hold, we're looking for 746. But then we should bounce off of that. Google is also looking weak in the in the pre-market. We need to hold 244. Otherwise, this gap is going to likely get filled all the way down to 241. Then we'll see if we bounce off that. And then Microsoft could be dipping to 505, if not the low 500s, and we'll see if we bounce. The VIX is breaking out here, so it's going to likely continue to uptrend. And as you know, we have like a double bottom, so this may continue to uptrend a bit longer before we get a big rejection. So I think that the market could dip a little bit more. SPY could be dipping to like 655 to 652, and then there will likely be some kind of bigger bounce, but the bounce is not ready yet. We're still looking bearish, so just play the price action in front of you. As SPY, the QQQ and futures dip, I think Tesla's going to get dragged down. Tesla may retest 430 to 425, and we'll see if we bounce. Watch this lower trend line and see if we bounce near that range, especially as we have this gap to fill down here. We got this negative news from the Fed, so we'll just have to see what happens, at least for the time being. With that being said, the Fed is one of the reasons why we're dipping alongside our jobs numbers. It wasn't really enough to get the market to bounce. So for now, there's a change of plans. We're going to likely remain bearish temporarily. But then I do think that there will be a bounce coming soon. We're just not ready yet. So play the price action in front of you. Be ready for more downside, and we'll see what happens from there. Thank you for listening, and peace out.